All right, it's time for the paper review this morning. Let's get to see what the headlines are across the papers in Nigeria. We have joining us one of our regulars, leadership and communication strategist, Dr. John. Dr. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
Nice to see you.
Good morning. Glad to have you around.
Good morning.
Let's begin with the Punch newspaper now. 2019, Obasanjo attacks Buhari again, denies being neutral. And he was quoted, or his aide said, let me paraphrase what he said here. He said, only an unwise will sit on the fence or be neutral when his or her country is being destroyed with incompetence, corruption, lack of focus, insecurity, nepotism, brazen impunity, and denial of the obvious. Wow, that's the aide to the former president there relaying his message to Nigerians.
That those words are really very strong.
Strong words.
Strong words, exactly. You know. But again, it's good to take a position. You understand? And because the major problem we have over time in Nigeria is that anytime we go into election season, our brain as a people always goes on recess. We only press a reset when after we might have elected the wrong set of people. Now, I am happy that somebody is coming out to say this is my stand, but you do not need to make statements. You can make your statement without making enemies. You can actually say, this is what I stand for, without using some of those very strong words. So for me, I do not totally like those words, but I like the fact that the man is taking a stand that at this point in time, I am not supporting the present government.
All right. That's an opinion there. Unsigned electoral bill, INEC political parties meet this week. All right. And lead fight against corruption. President is urging African youths there. Okay. Serap sues Buhari for failing to order Ganduje's probe. It's still on the issues of alleged corruption and so on. I won't resign because of EFCC charges. NBA President Usoro has made that statement there. I'd like us to just move fast with the 2019 Danjuma's Forum meets today on consensus candidate. Okay, that's politics. House of Assembly speakers accuse courts of frustrating probes. And Fire Me lifts embargo on some banks. Okay, don't be afraid of federal might, Saraki tells Kwarans. And unpaid debts, oil depot owners shut down operations today. Okay.
And the nation is next. The top story here, 2019 polls, why Buhari didn't sign electoral bill. Progressive senators will block veto. Olawokpo Hashim attacks PDP APC. So if the APC could not get a third majority to impeach the leadership of the National Assembly, can the National Assembly get to third to veto Mr. President on this one?
Of course, if you actually listen or if you read what the president actually said, you discover that here and there, a lot of senses in it, because either we like it or not, the process has already begun. Right. We cannot continue to change law within the process. But again, I wonder why we think we have to rely on a set of rules to win election, either as an APC person or a PDP person, because it was this same electoral this thing that was used in 2015, and the incumbent was defeated. So if you know that your candidate, I'm talking about the opposition parties, if you know that your candidates are very popular, you may not totally need a change of law at this present moment.
But there's also nothing wrong in upgrading the laws.
It is not wrong. But what I'm saying is that the only blame I have for the presidency or the executive is the fact that they were dragging their feet when they started the entire process. But I'm not going to blame them for not assenting to it at this point in time, because the process has already begun.
Well, the point there is, if you read the president's arguments or the points he put forth, they make a lot of sense.
That's right.
Of course.
If you also look at the electoral bill, the way it is put together, it also makes a lot of sense. So the point I think it has to do with the timing, like you said.
What I'm saying,
we are going into elections now. Let us. This would have made a lot of sense if he came in 2016 or he came in 2017.
Of course. Of course, we should not forget the fact that it was the presidency or the executive that delayed it tactically to this point in time. But my emphasis is on the fact that if somebody won election in 2015 with that same electoral act, winning the incumbent, then somebody can also still win.
Let's move on very quickly. Don't forget that a lot has also been talked about the fact that Nigeria is signatory to international conventions that require that no law should be changed less than 6 months to a general election. Osunbajo's humility excites Lagos family. We understand that the vice president was in Lagos. what they call the house-to-house campaign kick-started. CBN targets youths in new loan policy. Alleged 1.4 billion naira fraud. NBA chief Osoro won't quit. I'm not neutral, says Obasanjo. Ekiti lifts embargo on banks. Lasma loses 18 in 1 year. $21 billion savings on food hailed. And Moses goes for 5.5 billion naira.
Okay, let's move to the Daily Trust. That's our next paper now. Absence of boards, commissioners slows SEC or SEC and Federal Character Commission. Okay, this has to do with the MDAs and ministries and so on and so forth.
You see, one of the things we can do to help ourselves is that the PDP government tried it, but maybe they didn't have the courage to pull through, is to actually make our governance system or structure less complex. The way it is now, you may think anybody can come out and say we are running a federal system, but in reality, it's a very complex system to the point that the president was alarmed. The former president was alarmed at a point when he knew the number of agencies and federal parastatals that were under the federal government. So we can't continue to run government like this. And that's why up to now, APC government is still struggling to make appointments. That was why they even appointed some dead people in the first place, because these things are just complex.
All right. I guess this brings us to the calls for devolution of power so the federal government can have less on its plate. Let's move on. While we are creating National Microfinance Bank, the CBN is trying to explain here. Over the weekend, a lot of people had talked about the issue of the creation of a National Microfinance Bank.
In actual sense, I think we have some of them with different names here and there. But the fact is that you cannot run an economy, a viable economy, rely on facilities from these our conventional banks. They are going to kill your business. They are going to kill you. I doubt that, I can authoritatively tell you that maybe one of the reasons why you see big men committing suicide is because of loans here and there. Because when you take this loan, you discover that at the end of the day, you can hardly pay back. So for us to run an economy that is viable, for us to run an economy that is productive, we must engage the most productive set of our population, and these are the youth. And how do you want to engage them? By giving them access to small facilities and loan here and there. It is actually sexy to be an entrepreneur, but it is not a good thing to be an entrepreneur in Nigeria because you do not have access to funds.
Yeah, but we've not forgotten the People's Bank of Nigeria, that was in fact that was the closest bank to the people at the time.
You can't run a bank with politics and have your economy grow.
Right.
What we've had over time is when government comes to power, starts a bank, and they are giving loan to their members. Once you are not a card-carrying member of their party, you can't get credit.
Okay. We hope they've learned from all of that. 2019, I am not neutral. Obasanjo is saying that. And Congolese bags 4 years for tramadol exportation. Candidates with corruption cases to be charged before poll. EFCC chairman is revealing that. And on the Electoral Act, APC senators to block PDP's override plot. Okay. Politics still in the air. It's really interesting.
I have the Point newspaper here. It captures controversies shrouding the electoral bill. Buhari's government not interested in free, fair elections. That's Obieze Kwesili says democracy is not military rule. 2010 Electoral Act still extant. Kayamo, APC taking Nigerians for a ride. That's coming from UNICEF. We talked about that earlier. On claimed dividends, shareholders blame rising figures on complicity of registrars. There's an interesting story here, and it has to do with health. Despite high suicide cases, Nigeria has 1 psychiatrist to 3.3 million persons. Isn't that mind-blowing?
That is huge.
It is. But again, if you know the fact that, if you realize the fact that not too many of us will want to walk into a psychiatric hospital, for example, to have a test, and then you will be asking yourself, why do we need them? In reality, why? Because once we hear that, we just want to run away. And I said the other time that many of us actually have one cases or the other without even knowing. My own case is that I forget people's name. It's something I should walk into a psychiatric hospital and run a test. But in Jesus' name, I would rather pray.
Go for a test.
Yes, I need to go for a test.
Just go for a test.
Yes.
I think that's the best thing. Okay, that's all for that.
Yeah, that's it on point.
New Telegraph is our next paper now. 800 billion naira subsidy debt, and on that, fuel scarcity looms as marketers shut depots. NMPC flaunts 2.6 billion liters, cautions against panic buying, and federal government tracks deals with bulk purchase marketers. Well, at this time where Nigerians are becoming skeptical, whether because anytime, anytime oil marketers are talking about, or any from the oil industry or sub-industry as the case may be, anytime there's a call for strike or the threat as the case may be, everybody is running to
everyone's
to stock up.
You see, if a government is not running well, or if, and when I'm not talking about administration, I'm talking about government generally,
government as a
either
whole.
your PDP or APC, then you tie the destiny of your people to an unnecessary item like fuel. Because I am not buying fuel because I just want to move from one point to the other. I am buying fuel because the transportation system of my country is not good. I'm buying fuel because when I get home, I'm going to pray before I have electricity. So everything around me is tied around fuel. That is why most of the times when they call for all this strike, we're supposed to just shun them and just move on if the transport system, if the rail system is working. So because of the failure of government over time, unnecessary things like fuel, and I deliberately call it unnecessary because we will have reduced our dependence on it if we had some basic things working in the nation. So when you don't have some of these basic things working, then your people, they turn it to a prayer point.
And it's a huge sum that we're talking about here, 800 billion naira. Some of the money,
That's
even
almost $1 trillion naira.
subsidy funds from, before the advent of this administration. But the NMPC keeps saying that we should not jitter, that there's no need to fear, that there seems to be enough supply. Are you optimistic that there wouldn't be a repetition of what transpired in December last year?
I am afraid. I am afraid because the Yuletide is here. We are going to celebrate Christmas very soon. I am seriously afraid. But again, let me tell the people in this government that if they fail to make the dealings and transactions within the NNPC transparent, then it's a major failure on their part. Because when they came on board, that was the hope of the people.
Exactly. Well, that responsibility lies on the table of the Minister of Petroleum. And we know who he is, as the case may be, as well as the government. All right, let me just run through the rest and then we just round off. I won't resign over 1.4 billion naira payment. NBA president is explaining that, Usoro. And Obasanjo, why Nigerians must vote out Buhari. It says only an unwise person will be neutral in 2019. Okay, he gives his reasons for all of that. But certainly Nigerians have their own choices to make. Okay.
I can see you had to pad the word.
Yeah, because he's a strong word to pronounce this morning. The Catholic Bishop of Enugu rejects Mbaka's apology, bans political prophecies, and all of that is a fallout of what happened a few days ago. And Mbaka's committee to boost youth entrepreneurship, and APC, Ikpeazu deceived Buhari on projects. Okay, that's a controversy from there as well. Okay, that's the New Telegraph. That's a newspaper review this morning. Dawson, we thank you for coming, but I will be keeping you for the next discussion as well. All right.